Hey, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Dog Talk. This is really exciting. Again, as we always like to start off everything that I do with a little bit of gratitude. So we always like to say thank you all for watching, tuning in, liking, sharing, and subscribing to our YouTube channel. As you guys know, you can always listen to our show on any of your favorite podcast platforms 1 hour after the show. So getting right into it tonight, we do not have a guest, but we are really excited about where Dog Talk is going this year. So it's really exciting to know that we're going to be able to really get out there and help other companies, businesses, small businesses, large businesses, but everybody in the pet industry really grow into a whole new avenue with so much fun stuff going on. Tonight's episode is something that's been coming up a lot lately, as we had a lot of Christmas puppies. We have a lot of breeders, a lot of rescues, a lot of things that are going on nowadays. So this is something that I think if you are a new dog owner or possibly looking to become a new dog owner, or you're looking to expand your pack, this I think is going to be a good episode for you tonight. And again, like always, just to let everybody know, you can at any point in time throw a comment in the comment section. It will pop up. I'll be able to see it so we can have a nice open conversation here with everything going on. But tonight, it's going to be more about picking the right dog and some things that we have to always take into consideration when doing that. So a lot of times people will fall in love with the way dogs look and they grab them and they don't take a lot of things into consideration. Like, what are some of the challenges of dog ownership? What about some of the challenges of the breed that you're looking for, or the energy levels that may come with it, or something like that? Do you go out and just pick any random breed? Do you just go with the Google results, or do you just pick the dog because of the way it looks? Now, for me, matter of fact, I can honestly say is that I normally take a journal, and what I do is I write down what I'm going to be doing with this dog. So, for example, when I was in law enforcement, I wrote down that I needed a dog to be able to jump at certain heights, capabilities of certain things, looking at strong nose, strong abilities, physically health. I want lightweight, all these different variables. And what the things that I typically would not put in there would be the cosmetic things. So, for example, I wouldn't put that he had to have a tan coat or had to have a multicolor coat or a certain kind of coat. I wouldn't be breed specific either. I was very, very pinpointing on the tasks and my objectives that I wanted to do with the dog. So I was doing sports, bike joring, AKC scent work, any of that kind of stuff. That's what you really want to focus in when picking that dog. And it's not really because you're trying to be picky about something, but it's more about making sure you can offer the best to your dog. So for example, what brings you to wanting a dog is a really good thing. Do you see what I'm saying? So buongiorno, John. So figuring that kind of stuff out, like, so what's motivating you to become a dog owner? Now, when you sit there and say, we're looking for a family companion, okay, great. Do you have the money in your budget to afford grooming, certain care? So, for example, that will limit to certain breeds, knocking that kind of stuff out. Do you have allergies, dog shedding issues? There's so many little tidbits that go into it. Are you a very active family? Do you like to go on the water? Do you like to go sledding? Do you go ice hockeying, or not ice hockeying, but do you go skiing, snowboarding? Do you want to take your dog on vacations? There's so many different little elements. Are you outdoors versus indoors? Do you like to go hiking, biking, sailing? These activities that you do on a daily that you're really interested in really needs to be listed down on a piece of paper so you can find the dog that's best going to fit that need. So I like to normally do, like I said, I typically would start that list off saying, hey, this is what I normally am looking for in my dog. I want the dog to be capable of doing all these things, needs to be semi-friendly, needs to be doing this, doing this, doing this, doing this. Now, all of a sudden, I'm going to start opening up to the universe of what I'm looking for. So now that I know what I'm looking for, now I can know how to find the right dog. I can contact rescues, the humane societies, breeders, and so many different things. So there's so many different ways of finding that out, and that's what you really have to make sure of. Are you getting them as a companion? If you're getting them for the companionship, but you're not a very active person, you might want to look for a smaller dog that can get a lot of its energy out in the home. If you're a type of person that likes to go hiking, you might want to get a larger dog. They can handle more of the physicalities of it and things like that. So these are ways that we want to put those out there. So I guess one of the big things that really comes up, a lot of people, I've seen some dogs come in with really matted hair, and knowing that you need to put the time in for grooming. Are your dogs friendly to children? I'm just trying to pop things right off my head here that we normally think of. Activity levels. Do we have children? Do we go traveling a lot? Are you home a lot versus not home a lot? There's all these little variables that come into play. The next big thing that you want to do is, once you've now pinpointed your roster of things that you're looking for in your dog. So for example, you and your dog are highly active. Great. So you're going to look for a highly active dog. What is your training regimen going to be? What is your work schedule going to be? How do you dictate these things? When it comes into working your dog, you want to show a high level of consistency. So I have a simple phrase that I live by when it comes to my training, which is to be consistently inconsistent to create consistency. Now, what that means is this: dogs are very, very intelligent, and what they do is they study you all the time. Okay. So when your dog knows what your car sounds like versus anybody else's car, they know when your garage door is opening, they know when you grab your car keys, they know when you're doing everything and anything, because we are consistent with what we do. So when it comes into working with your dog and training your dog that you've now picked to fit your lifestyle, you have to remember that now you have to make sure that that dog can adjust into your lifestyle. And that's where you're being consistently inconsistent to create consistency is going to matter the most. So what we mean by that is really simply is this: if you take your dog out for a walk every day at 3 o'clock, at 2:59, your dog is pumped up to go for a walk at 3 o'clock. If your walk is consistent, meaning it's the same exact walk over and over and over again, okay, your dog will get bored of the walk and start looking for other mental stimulant. And that's when your problems start to arise. So you are now showing 100% consistency there. Now, if you change up that walk, meaning that you go left one day, right the next day, you've now created inconsistency, but it's also still consistent because every other day you are going the opposite direction. Your dog will figure that out. So being consistently inconsistent means that you cannot be predictable. So flipping a coin to decide how you go for a walk, flipping a coin if you go hiking, but no matter what, it's still at 3 o'clock. So then that way you are showing the consistency in that behavior to get you and your dog where they need to be. So that's one of the big things you want to look at. If you're extremely active and you do certain sports, when you start your training, know that you purchased the dog for or you rescue the dog for that sport. So when you start your training, you want to start it off right, being consistent through the board. That way your dog looks forward every week to go to the sport, work on it, and saves their energy. The most important thing that we think about when you're working a dog, and to me, this is sort of vital. If you're going to be doing sports, you have to be mindful that your sport has to be consistent. They don't typically overlap. So if you're doing bike joring or AKC scent work, or you're doing something dock diving, or dock dogging, things like that, this is really crucial to understand that these sports do build up a level of stamina, endurance, drive, and you want to show your dog is consistent in what they're doing. So you have to be mindful that if you're bringing your dog, let's say once a week, to go swimming, to get them really into the whole dock diving thing, then what's going to happen is if you change that on them, you're going to see a negative reaction because their body is now built up and they're saving the energy to go swimming. So now all of a sudden a week comes by and you're like, well, it's too cold, we're not going to go, or I don't feel like doing it right now, or something like that. Your dog is now being set up for negative behaviors. And this is why we talk about finding the right dog that matches what you're going to do. Also making sure you know what you want to do when you get your dog, because you don't want to go into it as a mystery, because then you'll spend the entire time being frustrated trying to figure this out. Because you have to show that consistency across the board for your dog to have the ability to get out their energy, their mental needs, and all those things out of their system to be a good dog for you. So that's why it's sort of vital to start off by fixing and picking the right dog that fits your family. Are you growing your family? Are you a newlywed? Are you alone and this is going to be your partner in crime? This is how you have to start to think about this when you're picking your dog, is you really have to know your end game. When we train a lot of dogs, we always ask people I don't want you to know, I want to know what's going on now, what some of your main concerns are, but I always ask them, what are you looking at in 5 years? I always ask them every time they come to do an evaluation with me, one of the first questions I always ask is one thing is this. I want you to picture it 5 years from today. What are you doing with your dog? And the reason why I ask that, I even ask that when I talk to people about business, is not because it's not gonna that I'm trying to ignore what's going on today, but in order to fix the problems today, it's to give you the plan and lay out the map to get your 5-year goal. Because if I just fix the problem today, it's going to equal another one and another one and another one. And that's where the problems come in a lot of times with people with their dogs. They're so focused on oh, my dog's jumping. Okay, but what happens? You want the dog to become an agility dog, or you want the dog to be able to do these capabilities, and you scold them and you make jumping into be a scary thing. You have to be mindful that could set your dog completely back in your sport. So if you want to do a sport, if you want to do an activity and that behavior is not wanted, then we have to be mindful on how we're going to get it there. And if you don't want to keep jumping sports because you're not sure, do the research on the sport before you introduce your dog to it. I highly recommend checking them out. Dock diving dogs. I mean, you can literally go down there and watch them all day, anytime they're practicing, they have no problem with it. So any sport, Schutzhund, Mighty Ring, French Ring, PSA, you can go to any trial, watch it, and see if you're going to be interested in it. I have never seen a group or a training group shun you. I don't even know any dog trainers that would shun anybody that comes by themselves to just sit there and observe. They're normally welcomed with open arms into the family of dog world. And because of the fact that, it's expanding knowledge, it's expanding relationships. Everybody wants to be a part of it. Hola, Trish. So that's the biggest thing that you want to think about when you're getting into this, because when you get your dog and you start your relationship with them, and then you start jumping around, you don't realize how messed up you're getting your dog, and you're setting them up for failure. And the reason why I say that is because when you switch from sport to sport, or obedience style to obedience style, or activity to activity, or you just randomly, you don't realize what you're doing for them, right? Like I always say is this, and here's a funny one to think about. I know I'm rambling today, but it's such a big, broad subject. It really is a big, broad subject, but I've always said that I've never met a tired athlete. So, I hear a lot of people come to me and they tell me that their dogs are really, really frustrating. And then they tell me that they exercise their dogs all the time. Just be mindful. If you are running your dog, if you are doing all these things and you're not consistently doing it for them, you have a dog that is now full of stamina and endurance, and they have to take it out someplace, right? Anybody I know that works out, and since John Hansen is watching, I'm going to use him as a prime example. The dude works out, physically fit, and you know what he wants to do later? He wants to work out and get physically fit. John, if you're still watching, give me a thumbs up, because I guarantee you agree with me. If you are a person that is constantly going to the gym, working out, being physically fit, doing physical activities, doing this kind of stuff, you are going to get excitement and the thrill in doing those things. Well, your dog is 100% on the same exact trail of this. So when you pick your dog, and again, starting from the journal, when you first got your dog, you lined them up to fit in your family. You want to show that consistency. You don't want to be bouncing around. If you already have your dog and you haven't done it this way, this is that good time to take that self-reflection and go, let me sit down and interview my dog. What would me and my dog really be interested in? Go check out these different activities. Check out different sports trials. Think about different activities that you like doing, maybe hiking, biking, exercising, walking, different neighborhoods, doing different things. Do you like playing hide and seek? Do you like doing this kind of stuff? It is vital to understand that your dog loves spending time with you, and they enjoy all of the different stuff that you do. So they really would do anything to make you happy, but you have to be mindful that whatever you're building them towards, you don't want to just take the rug out from underneath them. You want to keep that consistency going, if that makes sense. So from day one, when you're picking your dog and you're going out there, you want to send the universe the right message. So you want to really know what you're lining your dog up for. If you have your dog and you're like, man, I'm just trying to find some activities for them, don't guess. Just see what your dog's interested in. It's really, really simple. You can go out there, you check out all the different sports. I have never, like I said, I've never met a person that would be unwilling to work with you, teach you, and educate you on the different things. But they can test the dog for you and see if the dog has what it takes or has the desire to do those things. But be mindful. You want to go home and test it on your own. If the dog is really good at finding stuff, playing hide and seek with the dog, hiding treats for the dog, doing that kind of stuff that's going to give that longevity of consistency is what your dog is really looking for. Picking the one that's going to be matching your lifestyle is the key, right? So you never want to be the polar opposite. And that's one of the things that we talk about here. If you have a dog that's extremely high drive, full of energy, ready to rock and roll, but you're not, then it's not a good fit, right? So if you got the dog for companionship and that dog is not there, one of you two you're going to have a really rough relationship because of the fact that you're not set up for those things. Now, a lot of people have come and said, well, is that breed? You have to pick the certain breed. I can tell you right now, I have a rule in my house that I will always have a German Shepherd. But just because of the rule of the house haying, I will always have a German Shepherd, doesn't mean my German Shepherd will do every activity I have. That's why I also have a Belgian Malinois, and then I also have a Skipper Key from there as well, because a dog breed is not necessarily capable of doing everything. You have to look at personalities. You have to look at a lot of different things. So there's a lot of little tidbits, right? So, for example, I'm not huge into grooming, right? So I'm learning now about grooming. I didn't really know a whole ton of information about grooming. Like if you look back a few episodes in Dog Talk, we had talked about the poodle and the unique haircut that they get. It is a huge task to learn that kind of stuff. And one of the things that I can honestly tell you is that when I've learned about it, it was amazing to hear it. It's amazing to know about this breed in particular. But me personally, as of this time in my life, I will not have a poodle. Getting them groomed, getting them maintained, doing all that work, I don't have the time. I don't have the patience for what is necessary to take this dog to its highest level. And because of that, I will not get that breed. But it doesn't mean it's a bad breed. It just means that it's not fitting in my lifestyle at this moment in time. So because of that, I have to be mindful of it. So then the next one I look at for my lifestyle is, well, I really like to go and do water sports, right? So my GSD, my German Shepherd, does fit into that category, but also other dogs that fit in that category, Labrador Retrievers. I'm drawing blanks. There's a bunch of, there's a lot of water dogs out there, right? So I'm sorry, I'm having a mental break here. But there's a lot of water dogs that can go out there, that can go fishing with you, that will love going in the water, love doing those things that you can get into at that point in time. And you can think of different grooming aspects, the different activity levels. And that's one of the things that you want to put into perspective when you're picking your dog. Is it fitting you? Is it fit your lifestyle? Does it fit your activity levels? Does it fit your family life? Are you able to bring it to work? Is it big? Is it small? Do you have the right amount of equipment, the right amount of space? Do you have the right amount of time? These are all the things that you want to put into the category when you're doing it. So to recap the episode, as we start to come to the end, is really simply as this. When you're looking for your dog, okay, and you have to think about it, most importantly is this. You want to start out by knowing what you are going to be doing with your dog. Are you going to be doing high levels of obedience? Are you doing sports? Is it a companion dog? Is it a dock dog? Is it a dog for travel? Is it a dog for emotional service? Is it emotional? Is it a service dog? It could be anything that you're looking for. But you want to start out by really writing it down and really understanding what you are going to be doing with this dog. If you're getting him for just simply as a companion to be with, great. But write it down. Write down your lifestyle. It's not always about like, what are the characteristics that I'm looking for? Because the truth be told is it's the characteristics of yourself that your dog is going to reflect. Your dog will reflect who you are and what you are. If you're inconsistent, the dog is inconsistent. If you're consistent, the dog is consistent. So when you start your list off, before you adopt, purchase, or anything of the sort, you really want to make sure that you know what your lifestyle is going to be. Are you going to have a large pack of dogs, or is this going to be you and a dog? Those are lots of questions you want to look at. So you normally start off this way. If you didn't start off this way and you already have your dog, maybe it's time to write down the list, because if you're having these problems or frustrations with your dog, the first thing you want to do is self-reflect. Take a piece of paper, write down things about yourself. Then tell me, or tell yourself, how does your dog fit into the categories that you put out there about yourself? Once you see where you guys connect, you're going to see how you can do so much more together, right? You can put your activities down. Your dog will love that kind of stuff. Like I said, one of the fun activities that I always enjoy doing with dogs is seriously just playing hide and seek with them. I already know that my dog is absolutely in love with me, the family, and everything of the sort, which means if I ask the dog to find them, they're going to use what they're naturally born with, which is their nose, to find the odor of my sons, my wife, myself, whomever, and they're going to enjoy every second of looking for them and finding them. And that's when I sit there and I have to, really get really pumped up to find out that my dog is so interested in finding them, which then later down the road gets heavier and harder because you make the hiding more difficult. You can go into the woods, you can go camping and do this. It's essentially something you can play hide and seek with your dog at all times. And because of those things, when you think about that, that means you're fully capable of working your dog anywhere and everywhere, physically and mentally stimulate them with little to no effort. And that is one of the neat things that you can do. So that's why it's one of those, unique activities that you can play with your dog. And it's a simple game of hide and seek. So when you know that we live in a cold environment, you want to make sure that you have activities to do, because if you don't like going outside in the snow and the cold, then you're not obviously going to be taking your dog out there. So in tonight's recap, it's really simple, guys. Start looking at ways of being consistent with your dog to show them all those key things. If you're going to get into full-fledged activities, remember, just because the weather changed, your dog didn't. So to make sure that you are always staying consistent with your dog, you have to be mindful that no matter the weather, your dog still needs the activities. So if you're going to take your dog swimming all summer, you make sure you line up the things for the winter to make sure you're still consistent across the board in the winter, if that makes sense. So, there's plenty of places that you can find that allow your dogs for indoor swimming. So that way you could take them there and get the swimming exercises in them. If not, your dog's going to have a ton of pent up energy, and it's going to create unwanted behaviors, and it is going to make you more disciplinary. And that's really what tonight's episode, if you take anything away from tonight, one of the biggest things I really wanted to make sure that everybody heard was you have to be consistent with your dog with the activity levels that they're used to. You can't change it on them as quickly as we change it on ourselves. It's just a rough time for them, and they don't know what to do. And that typically is what creates unnecessary aggression or unwanted behaviors in your dog, because they don't know how to get out the energy that you essentially showed them how to do at one point in time. So if you're going to go dock diving, you got to continue with it. If you're going to do a sport, continue with it. Make sure you're showing consistency. Due to COVID, maybe they shut the pool down. Maybe they shut the location down and you couldn't take your dog to that place. Well, figure out a different activity that's similar to it to get your dog fully into it. So that's it for tonight, guys. I want to say thank you again for watching, listening. I know it was a little bit of a ramble. I do apologize for that one, but just remember, if you're out there with your dog, to prevent unwanted behaviors, show the consistent behavior in you, and your dog will mimic what you're looking for. All right, guys, you all have a great night. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next week.